dad. I don't know if it's more of like a cultural aspect of it, but sort of like with my family, it's sort of like the kids come back to take care of the parents.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they've taken care of us. And just especially like my dad has the expectation, and I'm sure it's what I want to do as well, but to go to law school and become a lawyer.
Yeah.
And obviously with law, there's good money there as long as you're a good lawyer. And so he's expecting me to be making bank, as he puts it. And so I'll come back to take care of them, you know, give them their own house, pay off their bills, their debts. So I strongly feel like that's something that parents especially look to graduates as like something that they're supposed to do for them.
Yeah, so there's hope not just for you, but for
the entire
everybody.
family.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And you guys were nodding as well.
I feel like I felt the hopefulness and like just within myself because I feel like my parents, which also I think this really speaks to the fact that no first-gen student is the same because my parents didn't look into stuff like the hopeful statistics and things like that because I feel like in my personal situation, my parents felt like they couldn't put it on me if they didn't do it themselves. You know what I mean? So like they felt like they couldn't make it a standard for me because they didn't have that standard for themselves. So I felt the hopefulness for myself. Not within my family.
Yeah. Interesting.
I'm in a similar situation where it's like the kid comes back and takes care of the parent. My mom she doesn't work right now because she's taking care of my grandmother full time.
Yeah.
So it was never an option for me to not go to college. And like my parents understood what it meant, more so my mom, because my dad doesn't have a degree, but he ended up getting a fairly decent job without it. So he doesn't really understand it. But it was mostly my mom pushing my brother and I that this is what we have to do. There's no other option. But she wasn't really excited when I came to UT. I transferred here. I was in the CAT program, but she didn't want me to transfer here. She wanted me to go to UH so that it's one, closer to home. And cheaper because I am paying for all of my tuition, rent, everything myself. So she didn't really understand that I felt like UT would give me more opportunities in the future for what I've been pushed to do. She just was looking at like the monetary portion of it.
And it is hard to explain that. Really hard. Any thoughts there?
I think that for me personally, like the hope aspect of it came like a lot later. So I feel like now my family's like really hopeful and they're a lot more like support. Not that they weren't supportive before, but it was just like, I think that at first, like when I was first like deciding that I wanted to like study away from home, it was just like mostly just fear of like living away from home. I'm the oldest child and like I do like everything for my parents. It was really hard for them to like imagine like me not being at home. And so I had to like, it was like a lot of like pushing like me and my parents, like I want to go, I want to pursue this. And so they never really like saw like, oh, like, you know, this is going to be like a better future. I mean, I guess they did, but they were like, you just go to community college if you want to study, like everything's the same. They didn't really see like a value in like trying to go to like a good name university or anything like that. But I think that like, I've like proved myself and I've like been doing a lot of different things. They're believing more in like me and like what like this institution and like what I can do for myself. So I definitely feel like nowadays like it's a lot easier and it's a lot more hopeful of like what I can bring for my family and for myself.
I have a perfect example of this. So just last weekend, actually, my parents were in town visiting me, and I got out of class and I met up with them on campus and I walked them around the campus. They had been before, but like never as me as a student showing them like, oh, I have a class in here. And, so that was really neat and it was like a really proud moment for myself. But then also like we took a picture on campus and like my mom posted it on Facebook and she put, thank you for giving us this experience.
Aww.
And like that was just really cool to see just because like I had never thought of it like that. You know, like my parents are kind of like living through me. Like we went to the co-op and they bought like Texas parent stuff and like,
that's awesome.
You know, so like it's really like I share everything that I do. Like my mom feels like she's a UT student because like I tell her about all my classes. She knows everything that I do here and so yeah, it's like a shared experience.
That's an amazing gift. How about you, Catherine?
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, like, I know that I'm going to be able to eventually give back to my parents, but also they just can't stop posting on Facebook about anything I do. Like, my dad really loves NFL, but he hates college football. But he will, like, only watch UT games now. and like always posts about them, and he'll find like a screen cap of like the stadium from like overview, and he'll like put an arrow and be like, this is where Katie was sitting today at the game. And my mom, it's like she's a UT student. She can't stop bragging.
Yeah.
It makes me feel really good.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I can
Brought
do
them that. Yeah. Yeah. How about you,
I
Cameron?
would say that we're giving our parents evidence of their teaching. We're showing them that through what they've taught us, what we've learned from them, that it's possible to create opportunities for ourselves.
Yeah.
And especially if you think about it, my mom, she hated school, but she always motivated me to continue. She always wanted me to do my best. And I find it so ironic that she wasn't an engineer. She's so good at taking like vacuums apart, putting them together, fixing them.
Yeah.
And then my dad, he got his GED, but God, the guy can talk about history. I'm surprised he wasn't a history professor. But it's just the things that I've seen from them, and with myself, I'm giving back to them through opportunities and creating not only a role model for my younger sister, but also for my brothers. Because now my brother Mark, he wants to go to school, he wants to get a degree.
Excellent.
My brother Joe's thinking about it too, and it's just, I like to be that light for them when they feel like they're in the dark.
Yeah, it's totally a gift.
I have never seen this evidence until I looked at the slides before, but for me, it's never personally been about dropping out, but I think the question was more of like, should I go? Like, do I need to go to college?
Yeah.
Because I mean, it wasn't in my family, so I think the question for me was more like, what are the other options? But once I was here, I've never thought about having to drop out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've personally never like seen the evidence, but I know I'm not allowed to, but I've definitely thought about dropping out multiple times because it just feels like it would be much easier than trying to do this by myself.
Yeah.
I think in terms of thinking like back to like my siblings, I mean, none of them have a college degree and none of them really like went afterwards to get that. So I kind of see that evident in my own family. I mean, I would say it's discouraging because if my brothers didn't have to do it, why should I do it? And as well as how I did in high school, my academic performance, it's sort of like my parents look at me as like the golden child. So it's more of like, it's not an option for me to drop out since I have so much pressure from them to do as good as I did in high school.
Yeah. Interesting. How about you guys?
For me, it was more of, like she said, like I have seen actually evidence of close friends of mine who are also like first-gen students, and I've definitely thought about it myself just because like they've said, like it's just really hard trying to like figure out everything on your own. And like on top of like figuring out everything for yourself, it's like having to like go back and explain to your parents like what everything is. I'm like a child of like immigrants, and it's like trying to explain to my mom that like, oh, I want to live like in a dorm. She's like, so you're gonna sleep in your classroom? Like they just don't understand the concept of like college, and it's just really hard to try to like bridge the gap between like life here and then like life back home.
Yeah.
And then just like economically, it's like really hard as well. Like like you said, like income is like really low. So it's definitely challenging and discouraging, but also like I'm the oldest, and it's like I feel like I can't drop out because then like my siblings are gonna like look up to me. They're like, well, like she couldn't do it, so I guess like we can't either.
Yeah. So you've got the role model status.
Yeah. For me, I've actually have seen this evidence. I have a few friends who. I'm from Houston, so they stayed in Houston, and they are first generation. And I see my friend. I was really like shocked when I heard this, but she was like the number 3 in our class when I graduated, and she dropped out her second semesters. And and she like for me it's like she had so much potential, and I was just kind of sad that she dropped out. Like, but on the terms of me actually coming to college and thinking about dropping out, like. I had a kind of a different story. I'm not the first one in my family to go to college. I do have an older brother who went to college, got his master's, and like now is like he's pretty successful in his career. And so I feel like for me, I had him to look up to, and without him, I feel like it would be so much more discouraging because he's the one who pushed me to go to college. I was like, maybe I should just stay in Houston, and he was like, no. Like, you need to apply somewhere else. You need to make sure you apply for scholarships. So, like, I feel like without him, even though I had, like, college counselors and stuff, like, without him, it would be maybe a different story of where I would be right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. How about you, Alyssa?
I personally have not seen the statistics. However, I remember my freshman year, I noticed that most of my friends whose parents did go to college, they were more integrated into campus. They were doing what I thought a lot better than I did. I was definitely struggling with my classes and all around. And I think that it was really hard for me to stay through. However, I never strongly considered dropping out because if I actually did, I don't know what else I would do, just because even though my parents have been supportive, they instill the values of education, it is difficult for me. I couldn't imagine doing something else besides going to school.
Yeah, so I was just telling Dr. Kaler that I read a study about the 4 different challenges that first-gen students face, and I think it was like psychological, financial, economic, and professional. And the professional piece is the biggest one, just because, I mean, like, how many of you guys have had a situation where, or know people who have a situation where like they got an internship because they knew the person, you know, like that, you don't have that as a first-gen student. And I mean, I know when I got to UT, especially, I transferred from community college, so I got here as a junior. And when my first semester, the first class I ever sat in, I was like sitting in, I think it was this class.
Was it?
Yeah. I think this was my first class ever at UT, like my first day ever, like Dr. Kaler. But yeah, I remember like sitting in, or maybe it was Wilcox, I don't know, someone's class. And I just heard someone talking about like an internship, and like they had to go to their internship after class, and I was like, what is this thing? Or like, of course I knew what an internship was, but like I didn't know like how, it just makes you feel like you kind of don't belong, you know?
Yeah.
And, like you don't have, your parents don't have this network to connect you with. So yeah, I think the professional one is the biggest. And also like that's what we're all here for, to get into the professional world. So when you don't have that resource, it really does make you feel like you don't belong until you're connected to one.
Yeah.
So I come from like a much more affluent suburb of Houston, and when I was like getting ready to apply for college and everything, most of my friends are much, much more affluent than I am. And since my parents didn't understand anything, I had to go to them because like their parents had gone to college, they knew what they were doing. I was like, what's FAFSA? How do I fill this out?
Yeah.
What's apply taxes? How do I do this? And then I felt that coming to college as well.
I was really shy when I came in. Like I was the only one in my class from my high school who came to UT, so I didn't even have that to like count on either, because a lot of people like they hang out with their first, like with the people who came with them from high school, but I didn't even have that option. So for me, it was more about joining an organization. That's how I joined the organization I am in now, and I feel like from there, it kind of just built my confidence, and I started out as a member, became an officer, now a president, which like really built my confidence. So from there, I'm just like, okay, I need to make sure that I am not shy. I need to make sure that I am very outgoing. So I feel like that's the best way to go about it, even though you have these like barriers. Like you have to make yourself known and like make sure your presence is there, no matter like how you feel, like you have to overcome that.